Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 506, your News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Mark Paoletta is going to join us, but he's now going to join us at the bottom of this hour at 5:30. That's because we just got something of a surprise phone call. We're glad to have him. We were trying to get him on the air today, and sure enough, he's here. The Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Jason Miyares, joins us right now. Mr. Attorney General, good to have you on the show again.
I know there's some question about connecting with me, but I'm down in Southwest Virginia and Damascus delivering some hurricane relief supplies that we've collected, and it's just been remarkable, but great we're able to connect.
I'm glad we are. Since you're there, how is Southwest Virginia doing right now? Are people recovering from that storm?
They are. This is a remarkable, resilient, optimistic people. They're in rebuilding mode. So a lot of people that lost homes, but we're definitely in the path of rebuilding. And it's a great area down here. I encourage everybody to come down, visit Damascus, Virginia, and Abingdon, and some of these other great towns down in Southwest Virginia and Marion, and just a great area.
And one of the questions I get constantly from our audience is the implications for the election. Are you comfortable that people in Southwest Virginia are going to be able to continue to easily vote despite the damage there?
Yeah, I do. I mean, people are fired up about the election down here. We have power back, and so there's not going to be an issue of no polling. Polling stations not being able to be open because of a lack of power. Power's back, and people can early vote now at their voter registrar. So,
okay, good.
There's not going to be a problem hindering people to vote. Nothing that I've seen.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's talk about the vote, because that really is something that the national media is now fixed on. That's because the Biden administration on Friday sued the Commonwealth of Virginia because the Youngkin administration moved to say, hey, non-citizens, over 6,000 of them who are on the voter rolls shouldn't be there, and said, look, you're no longer on the voter rolls. Only citizens can vote in elections. And yet the Biden administration is suing to put non-citizens back on Virginia's voter rolls. What are we to make of this?
It is beyond concerning that just within 30 days of an election, they are trying to pull something on a law that's been on the books since 2006. It was a law signed by Tim Kaine, and not just Tim Kaine, but former Democratic governors like Ralph Northam and Terry McAuliffe all use this process. It's a law that says that we're required to remove non-citizens off our voting rolls. I know it shouldn't be controversial, this idea that non-citizens shouldn't be on our voting rolls and shouldn't be participating in determining who our leaders are, either in Virginia or determining who Virginia picks for president. And so these are individuals that voluntarily, they checked the box saying they were non-citizens with the DMV. And they told the DMV they weren't citizens. And then it's our job. We send them a letter saying if they're accidentally self-identified as a non-citizen, they have a period of time to correct that area. And if not, we're going to remove them from our voter roll. That is something that Democrat governors have done within that 90-day period prior to the election. There's absolutely, in our opinion, nothing controversial about it. We think it's what the law requires. They're basically trying to say that a law signed the law by a Democratic governor, practiced by Democratic governors, and then followed by Governor Youngkin is somehow improper. And so we look forward to our day in court. We're confident in our legal position, but the idea that they would be spending the time and resources on this, I think, tells you a lot about just how concerned they are. And I would probably argue how concerned they are about where Virginia is.
Given the short time frame we have now until the election, is it possible that the federal government could prevail and force non-citizens back onto the voter rolls?
That's probably one of the more remarkable things, is that the remedy they're seeking is to put people that only been identified as actually citizens back on the voting roll, which has already happened. So an individual that maybe inadvertently checked the box as a non-citizen, and we confirm later they are a citizen, those individuals are back on the voting roll. So what is so interesting in all this is the remedy that they're seeking in their injunctive relief isn't putting non-citizens back on the voting roll. So it really seems to be they're more interested in generating a headline in some ways to attack Governor Youngkin and the administration than they are actually. I actually don't know what they're thinking, because listen, as the Attorney General of Virginia, we run technically the largest law firm in the state. It's about resources. It's about how are you utilizing your time.
Yes.
The fact that they're utilizing their time and resources in this front, I find in some ways baffling, to be quite honest with you.
I wonder why Virginia has been uniquely targeted here, or maybe it hasn't. But there are a number of states across the country that have followed Governor Youngkin's lead here. Alabama identified over 3,200 non-citizens on their voter rolls. Texas removed 7,000 non-citizens from their voter rolls this year. Ohio identified another 597 non-citizens as well. And previously, Georgia, a couple years ago, they had identified a little over 1,600 non-citizens on their voter rolls. This is happening across the country where states are going through and taking an inventory and saying, these are people who should not be among our registered voters.
Well, think about it. What your federal government is saying is it's against the law to remove non-citizens from voter rolls that are supposed to be open only to American citizens. I mean, that is kind of the upside down world we're living in the Biden-Harris administration. And so, I know that they are bringing, or they will likely bring, lawsuits in these other states as well. At least that's my expectation. I want to be clear as well. Several counties have brought to our attention that they have identified non-citizens on their rolls and forwarded that information to our office as well. So I don't know what their thinking is. We look forward to our day in court arguing. Again, this is a law that was put in place by Tim Kaine in 2006, and Governor Youngkin is, the last numbers I saw, I think it was about 6,300 that were removed. Every state's finding different folks, but I think everybody should want an election that's both clean, that's fair, that every American has confidence in. That should be what we all want, right? And that's the path moving forward. And so kind of the standard I like to say is it should be easy to vote but hard to cheat.
Yes.
And I think one of the most important things should be making sure we have accurate voter rolls to make sure that we only have citizens participating in our elections.
Earlier in the program, we were speaking to the Fairfax County GOP chairwoman, Katie Gorka, about this too. And one of the things that came up is my understanding is that in order to be found guilty of violating federal law when it comes to voting in elections as a non-citizen, you have to knowingly do it. In other words, like you have to have some cognizance, some consciousness of your guilt as you're casting your ballot. Would it be feasible to change the way that people are instructed as they enter the ballot box that, hey, you have to be a citizen. You can't, if you're a non-citizen, you could be subjected to prosecution for voting in our elections.
Well, I mean, that's public information now.
Yeah.
As far as any type of specific instructions there, that would have to be something that potentially would have to be approved either by the Civil Rights section of the Justice Department or changed to the Virginia Code. But most individuals, I think, know that you cannot be a non-citizen to vote. But if they did, if there was an incident of that, then yeah, they could potentially be prosecuted for election fraud. And that is a violation in this country.
Yes.
That's part of what makes this so maddening is the fact that the Department of Justice, with all of the challenges they have at DOJ right now, this is the hill they want to die on, essentially saying to states, you don't have a right to remove people that have self-identified as non-citizens. This is not a case of individuals saying, we think maybe you aren't. No, these are people that have checked a box at DMV affirming, I am not a citizen of this country. And then they're essentially saying, even with that, you're not allowed to remove them off your voter roll. I think it says a lot about the misplaced priorities of the Biden Justice Department.
It says a great deal, and it's very abusive to certainly the people of Virginia and broadly the country. Before we let you go, just in your assessment as a guy who's elected as a Republican, how are you assessing the election right now? What are you seeing across the Commonwealth? I'm seeing a lot of these Republican leaning counties are showing up in big numbers. Are you encouraged?
Yeah, I am. I mean, the numbers are really encouraging. They do look a lot like, in many ways, what they looked like in 2021. I think there's a lot of interest in this election, rightly so. I saw a bumper sticker the other day that simply said, make groceries affordable again, right? I mean, in some ways, it's just harder to live in the Biden-Harris America that we now know. It's harder to put groceries in your kitchen. It's harder to put gas in your car. It's harder to pay your rent. It's harder to make a mortgage. I think the number I saw that when Donald Trump left office, the average household income in America to be a first-time home buyer needed to be $74,000. That number now is over $120,000 average household income to be a first-time home buyer. It's harder to go after that American dream. And the great irony of all this is when you hear the left talk about income inequality, one of the single largest for most Americans, the single largest financial asset they have that they can pass on to their children is their home. It is by far and away the one that accrues the most value that they can then pass on to the next generation. When you're making it so hard to do home buying, we put up so many rules and regulations that make it so difficult to build homes, and therefore you have such constricted supply, and it's that much more difficult to be a home buyer. You actually are exacerbating income inequality. And the point I love to make is the states with the highest level of income inequality are blue states: California, New York, Massachusetts. Why? Because they have made it difficult to build homes. They made it difficult to create businesses and difficult to access capital. Two-thirds of all new jobs in America are created by small business owners. Well, big corporations like Amazon and Walmart and others, they can afford the best tax accountants and the tax lawyers to figure out how they're going to meet the regulatory burden. It's the small business owner, the entrepreneurs that create so much wealth in this country. They flee those blue states like California, New York. They come to states like Texas and Virginia, best state in the country to do business right now, South Carolina and Florida. They're fleeing those states. So that is a great irony. They are pushing the same policies that actually make income inequality worse, to make it harder for you to then pass on multi-generational wealth for a new generation. It is stunning for me what we have done in this country that have hurt so many of the middle class, and that's why you see so many individuals that are excited to go vote this fall. They know it's just hard to live in Biden's America.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And at the federal level, there's so much profligate spending that they drive up inflation, which means higher interest rates, which means your mortgage is totally unaffordable. And so you're seeing it both at the state level and the federal level, and it's really exacerbating. You rightly point out this income inequality in the country at the hands of the left and their corporate sponsors. Yeah, it's a huge problem. But, you know, Virginia is open for business. We're making sure we're going to have a great election in Virginia. We're going to protect our voter rolls. We're going to make sure businesses come here and thrive, and we're going to be successful. The Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Jason Miyares, thank you for spending some time with us today. Glad we could get you. Thank you. God bless. There he is. All right. Thank you to the Attorney General again for joining us today. The election is barreling along. And speaking of the economy, President Trump had met with the Economic Club of Chicago today, and he was this is the Bloomberg CEO, Matthew Winkler, is that right? Yeah, so he spoke early and announced that, hey, Trump has agreed to do this, talk about the economy. Kamala stood us up.
The first is just for the record and for those people watching on television, the Economic Club of Chicago and Bloomberg both invited Vice President Harris to a similar interview about her economic plans that she has declined so far. Yeah, so she refused to do it. President Trump did sit down today, and things got pretty heated. He was talking to Bloomberg editor-in-chief John Micklethwait on stage, the two of them sitting, having this back and forth. And here is Trump talking about the importance of tariffs. Take a listen to this. You're also talking about 20% tariffs on the rest of the world. That is going to have a serious effect on the overall economy. And yes, you're going to find some people who will gain from individual tariffs. The overall effect could be massive. I agree it's going to have a massive effect, positive effect. It's going to be a positive, not a negative. Well, let me just I know how committed you are to this, and it must be hard for you to, spend 25 years talking about tariffs as being negative, and then have somebody explain to you that you're totally wrong. It'll have a negative. It will have. I'll go a step further. 40 million jobs is a lot of jobs to rely on. They're all coming back. Those are 40 million jobs. Those are 40 million jobs in America that rely on trade. Are you ready? John Deere, great company. They announced about a year ago they're going to build big plants outside of the United States, right? They're going to build them in Mexico. And you threatened them with tariffs and they stopped. That's right. I said, if John Deere builds those plants and not selling anything into the United States, they just announced yesterday they're probably not going to build the plants, okay? I kept the jobs here. All right, I got more audio of President Trump smacking around that British dude in just a moment, and the audience reacting with big approval to President Trump's remarks today, 521. Tariffs also have another side. Isn't that something that you have to acknowledge?
No.
You could be plunging America into the biggest trade war since Smoot-Hawley.
But there are no tariffs.
You're going to stop. There are tariffs already at the
there
moment.
are no tariffs. All you have to do is build your plant in the United States, and you don't have any tariffs.
People, a lot of places like this.
I love it. You know, it's so funny. This debate, the way that Bloomberg dude is having it, is so fundamentally dishonest, and it's the same way all the Kamala pushers do it too. They say things like, "Oh, if you impose a tariff, it's going to raise costs on every American because we're going to continue to have the same exact buying habits in that environment." That's what they're presupposing. Because they're trying to deceive you, actually. What Trump is trying to do is induce American success, to restore American manufacturing, to bring about a thriving American economy so that we take care of Americans. That's the whole goal. That's the whole goal. And bring about competition here inside of our borders. And they lie about it. They love to lie about what he's up to. President Trump talking about Gavin Newsom today. He calls him new scum, and the Bloomberg editor-in-chief hates that.
Millions of people, 21 million people at least, have come in the last 3.5 years, unvetted, unchecked. We don't know anything about them. How about this? Gavin Newsom, he's the governor of California.
Newsom.
He signed Newsom, I call him.
Yeah. But do you think?
No, he corrected me. He corrected me. I said, that's the first time I've been corrected.
There are CEOs out here. If they said those sort of things about a rival CEO, they'd be sacked. Do you think it's fine for a president?
But they don't have to survive like me. They don't have to go through what I have to go through. There has never been a president that's been treated like me, so I have to fight my own way.
Well,
you naughty boy! How dare you, insulting greasy Gavin Newsom? New scum. Trump corrects him. New scum. I call him new scum. What? The CEOs would be sacked, says the Brit. Yeah, I'm not them. I've got a tougher deal. Amazing. Really good. He's in top form. And I love Kamala's campaigns out there running. He's avoiding tough interviews. No, he's handling them very easily. Coming up, we'll be joined by Mark Paoletta as Kamala Harris has another harebrained idea. Let's see if it works. Good afternoon to you. It's 5:35 here. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Kamala Harris has all sorts of ideas that she would like black men to hear about, as so many black male voters have decided they'd instead rather vote for President Trump. It was President Obama last week who said that the, quote, brothers need to get back in line and vote for Kamala Harris, scolding black men everywhere. CNBC's reporting Vice President Harris unveiled an opportunity agenda proposal for black men Monday, which includes plans to provide 1 million forgivable loans to black entrepreneurs and new pathways to help black Americans succeed in the legalized marijuana industry. So more weed is her plan, and she wants to give away loans from the government. What is actually achievable here? What's even legal here? I thought the federal government precluded you from giving away benefits on the basis of skin color. I thought that was like kind of the whole point of the Civil Rights Act. Joining us now to discuss is Mark Paoletta. He's a senior fellow at the Center for Renewing America and co-editor of the book Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words. Mark, good to have you with us, sir. Is Mark with us? I assume he is.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for having me on. Yep,
there he is. Hey, Mark. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, Mark, Kamala Harris says that she wants to give away 1 million forgivable loans to black entrepreneurs specifically. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it illegal for the federal government to dole out benefits on the basis of skin color?
Illegal and unconstitutional, Vince. It's just outrageous. So, yeah, it's, the Supreme Court has ruled that this is unconstitutional. And it's just offensive, right, to treat people simply on the basis of their skin color, right? This is what segregation was about back in the 50s and further back. But this is Kamala Harris. This is her game. She carves people up by race, it's a desperate ploy. You know, the fact of the matter is, and as you said, Barack Obama scolded them, which is just hilarious to get back in line. But the fact of the matter is, as you know, as you pointed out, they don't like her policies on everything under the sun.
Yes.
From high prices, as Jason Miyares was talking about, to crime is out of control, a wide open border, right, where illegal aliens are bringing crime into this country, taking jobs from both Black and white Americans. People don't like that. They're treating illegal aliens better, right, with government benefits than Black Americans.
Yes.
And so it's those things that they're opposed to, and then they get shamed by Barack Obama. And then what does Kamala Harris do? She comes out with this ridiculous proposal, right? 1 million loans to Black men, that are forgivable, right? They're forgivable loans, right? And then she wants to set them up in the weed industry, as you pointed out.
It's crazy. I mean, she wants to. The claim here is that she wants to legalize recreational marijuana, make weed legal everywhere. She's like, hey, so basically, this is the most patronizing garbage I could possibly imagine. What you have is our Black voters, and every voter, they're saying, I'm tired of being abused by you. And she is the abusive stepmother coming in saying, hey, look what I got you. I got you a present. So rather than fix the problems that she created, she comes in and says, you know what you probably want is weed. I mean, how patronizing can you get?
Yeah, it's not only that. She also says she's going to help set them up to be in the business of running weed shops. Right. That's the second part of that paragraph, is that I'm going to help you get in this business too of it. And today it's a great day to talk about this, Vince. And I'll just mention this briefly, which is Justice Clarence Thomas was confirmed on this day 33 years ago, and he brings an entirely different view, right? A colorblind society, and how both unconstitutional, but how pernicious this is, and how it harms the recipient, the so-called beneficiaries. And that's what she does. And she's so out of touch with Black Americans, right? What she takes her signals from, right, is the progressive left, the Black leadership. We talked about this before. School choice. She's 100% school. That's what Black Americans care about. That's what most American parents care about.
Clearly.
School choice. What does she do? She's against school choice. The NAACP is against school choice. 81% of Black parents are for school choice. That's how you get Black men to support you, white men to support you, is to support school choice. But she doesn't, because she's so locked into protecting who? Randy Weingarten, right? And the teachers union, who don't care about your children. They only care about the teachers and bad teachers.
And they think that they can just if we give away a little bit of money, or if we make weed legal, everything's going to be fine. And Black Americans will fall in line. This is the presentation they're making. Also, I need to point out one of the many ironies to this, which are that she's saying she wants to make weed legal. Meanwhile, her administration right now is attempting to ban menthol cigarettes. They're trying to, as soon as the election concludes, they were going to do it before the election. They got worried that Black voters would be angry at them. This is really how they calculated it. And they said, okay, well, fine. We'll ban menthols after the election. So legal weed, but no menthols? What is this?
Yeah, same thing there. Just a complete, as you said, it's just so patronizing. It's such a ploy to bribe Black voters, who she's just doing historically bad with, right, to vote for her. The other thing in there, right, if you notice, is one of these, there's a number of states that do this, kind of blue states, but ban businesses being able to look at the criminal records of applicants for jobs, right? Now, if I'm a business owner, I'm going to want to know whether you're Black or white, whether you have a criminal record. But that's what she has in here. Another proposal.
Well, that's a racist assumption, isn't it?
Yeah, it's whatever page this is long. This long proposal with a chock full of things like that, which are, in my view, dehumanizing, kind of patently offensive, and unconstitutional. Right? It's just it treats people on the basis of their skin, and as Justice Thomas also points out, right, the spoils system leads to further division. Right? It leads to, people, the elites, as he says, picking winners and losers by race, and that's never a good thing.
What an amazing thing. Vote for me, and I won't tell your employer that you're a criminal. That's her pitch to Black voters? This is amazing. So it's no wonder I'm watching, as I'm looking at the numbers, people going towards Trump. And I know a lot has been said about Black men heading in Trump's direction, and that's true. That's a real phenomenon. But Black women, despite the fact that they are overwhelmingly supporting Kamala as a category, so far as you can do that, this is still the lowest level of support that any Democrat candidate for president has had this century among Black women. Black women are also moving towards Trump. So I think we're watching a very interesting phenomenon. I think we're also watching as Americans are done with the kind of identity politics that you're accurately describing here, Mark.
Yeah, I think it's also just a competence thing, right? Black and white Americans want a competent president. They watch her on the campaign trail, and she's not competent. She cannot talk about an issue. She doesn't know what to say. And so that's why they are not supporting it. That's why, as you said, I think you're exactly right, Vince. The trend lines here are really, really interesting. Hispanic voters, you mentioned that earlier today, right? I mean, Hispanic voters are moving away from the Democrats in droves, and it's because of this identity politics. It's because of it's because the Democrat Party is so locked in, right, to the hard left, the progressive left. Trans men playing in women's sports and girls' sports is offensive to everybody.
Yes.
Right. But that's what their policy is. And if you don't agree with it, you're cast out as some kind of bigot. And no, we just want to protect our girls. I had 3 girls play high school sports, 2 in college. No, I don't want a man. I watched these video clips of a male on a women's team smashing a volleyball into a player's head last night. I think it was on Megyn Kelly. It's just completely offensive. But that's where Kamala Harris is. She won't move off of those issues. She's throwing out these other issues to black men with this ridiculous program. But it just shows how desperate she is and how they're locked in the old style racial politics. You know,
I've over the years, I feel like we've had a lot of conversations in this program where I often ask, where are the men? How come the men aren't standing up? Oh, in like the schools, for instance, you see a lot of the mothers standing up, but you wonder where are the dads and all of this. I think there's an awakening of sorts going on, and this cuts across all racial lines, of just men waking up to their duties, their responsibilities, to their families, to their loved ones, and to their communities. And it's manifesting itself in these numbers, Mark Paoletta, as men are saying no, and they're reasserting themselves in a country that desperately needs them there.
Yeah, and the Democrats aren't listening. In fact, you're seeing it with Obama, right? Here's a guy. And again, you may have seen on X, which is just the greatest platform now, the number of black men and black women who torched Obama for coming out and chastising black men and saying, because you don't support Kamala Harris, you must be a misogynist, you must be a sexist. I mean, absolutely offensive, right? And they don't feel the pain, right? The black elites, the white elites, they don't feel the pain of what America is going through with inflation or with high prices that are from this high inflation, and the crime that's out of control, all these sorts of things. The Martha Radich, right, interview with J.D. Vance. Oh, a handful of apartment complexes. Yes, that's right. You'll never have to live with that. But it's this blindness to what America is going through, this willful blindness, actually, of what Americans are struggling through right now. And you're seeing it like with this type of Kamala Harris proposal, where it's just a patronizing pitch to buy their vote with things that are just dehumanizing, right? I'm going to give you everyone has struggles, as you saw. You saw the Morgan Freeman interview once, where he's talking about with Don Lemon, right, where everyone can get up and work. Everyone goes out and, the bus still runs, I think he says. You can go make your opportunity. You can get ahead. And to treat them all as victims, right? Going back to Justice Thomas's opinion in the Harvard case, this view treats all black people as victims and with no agency. And that's what's so offensive. And then, as you said, to pile on top of that, well, yeah, we're going to set you up in the weed industry. My priority is to make weed legal for you. My priorities are get you into the weed business. And by the way, I'm going to make sure employers don't know whether you have a criminal record or not, whether you're black or white. That's ridiculous.
How condescending is that? So you have a major presidential candidate saying that her appeal to black voters is to make them drug dealers. What the hell is that? I mean, honestly, it's some of the craziest things I've ever heard. And it was all in one idiotic proposal yesterday from Kamala Harris. She deserves to lose for this. I hope she does. Hey, Mark Paoletta, before I let you go, given that you really are, in many ways, single-handedly one of the great resources on Justice Clarence Thomas, given your friendship with him and your great advocacy for him through the years, the left has really made a huge project of attempting to destroy his reputation. They've, ever since he emerged on the scene. And do you think in the end they'll succeed? What'll happen with his reputation as history looks back upon it?
I think history will be very kind to Justice Thomas, and just to Justice Thomas. I think he'll be remembered as one of our greatest Americans. I think he's our greatest living American, a great justice. When you look at the opinions that he has helped forge through his leadership over the past 33 years, and this incredible American story, they go after him because he's over the target, because he is in the face of them and succeeding in an American way that makes them so angry. He's a threat to them. And so I think that, the thing is, Vince, the media, right, and sort of the bubble we live in attack him, but millions and millions and millions of Americans love him right now and think the world of him. When you look at his approval ratings, they've taken a little bit of a hit, but generally he's been the most popular justice on the court, with the highest favorable ratings. So, but you know what, at the end of the day, Justice Thomas doesn't care about that. It doesn't make life fun sometimes, but he's doing the right thing. And I'll tell you one thing, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he'll serve for many, many more years, regardless of what happens in November.
No, I know he has thick skin, but it's important that America accurately, document his contributions. And and when that happens, it'll be because of your efforts to make sure that happens. Thank you very much. Mark Paoletta, good to talk to you again. All right, let's go to the phones. I've got Mark calling in from Haymarket now on line 1. Hello, Mark. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, Vince. How you doing?
So good, Mark. What's going on?
I had a rather interesting voting situation out in Prince William County, Virginia. My wife and I just did early voting around 2 p.m., and we're walking out of the polling station.
Yeah.
And the two tents short distance away, I see a sign that is handwritten in front of one of the tents that says, "Stop Republican Voter Fraud." So I walked up and said to the three people, there was 2 women and 1 guy at the tent, and I said, can you give me a little detail on this? And
Sure.
The 2 women kind of looked at each other, and then the guy came walking up to me and goes, "Why do you want to know?" And I go, "Well, I'd just like a little detail about the Republican voter fraud."
Yeah, you
and he
put it
goes,
on a sign. Maybe you can explain it.
"Yeah, explain the sign that you clearly hand wrote. It was handwritten."
Yeah.
And I go, and I said, "Just looking for some detail." And he immediately then took another step closer to me, got really close, and goes, "I don't owe you any explanation at all. And a matter of fact, get away from my tent." And I went, "Excuse me?" I go, I just voted, and I'm asking you a question about a sign that you put up."
Also, it's public property you're standing on.
And he literally glared at me and goes, "I said, get away from my tent." So I started to turn and walk away. And one of the ladies goes, "It's because of all the gerrymandering and because of all the stuff that Trump's yelling about," as I'm walking away. And then once again, the guy yells, "And don't you come back to my tent." And it was unbelievable.
That's unbelievable.
Literally feet away from a polling station.
So this guy's barking at you. Obviously, you're talking about the Democrat tent. So what happened after that?
So after that, then I was so shocked by what had happened, because I'm 60 years old. I've voted a lot, and that's nothing like this has ever happened. I actually called the Prince William County voting registration office, and the lady who answered the phone, super nice, goes, "Oh, my Lord, I can't believe that." She goes, "I need to put you on the phone with my director."
Yeah.
She couldn't get him, but then she found out the director was going to that polling station.
Mm-hmm.
So I turned around and went back and talked to the head of the Prince William County elections, and I told him what happened, and the guy goes, "Unfortunately, he's just beyond 40 feet from the polling station." He goes, "The only alternative is for you to bring it to the attention of the Prince William police."
Yeah. Well, let me just cut through some of the nonsense here that guy was advocating for. It's public property. So I think what would be great is if some Prince William County patriots show up and just start singing "God Bless America," and they can stand inside the tent if they want. I mean, the whole thing, it's literally public. Get away from my tent. Obviously, be careful.
He was
this guy's
shooing me
menacing.
away from a library.
It's very typical. Par for the course. A very revealing exchange. Hey, Mark, Thank you for voting and for dealing with that garbage today, sir. I appreciate it. Mark with a good account. Holy cow. Coming up, the great one, Mark Levin, right here on WMAL.